It's Patrick Christys tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christys tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GBNews, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 9 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight,
Do a drill or a pen. 4-man, 3 shanks on the up block, 24-inch, will leave him drenched.
that monster and designer clobber has been released early by Keir Starmer.
He then says that you come back a few minutes later with a boiling kettle and you go to pour it over his head.
Kidnap, GBH, threats with a machete, trying to pour boiling water over a child. Meanwhile, this is big. A member of the House of Lords, the Justice Minister no less, reveals that judges might have given deliberately long prison sentences to people with no previous convictions during the summer riots. Is this cast iron proof of two-tier justice? And
Particularly this week, while the media are using racist gang tropes to justify the killing of Chris Cabba.
a Labour MP saying that I'm using racist gang tropes to justify the killing of Chris Cabba? Well, the CCTV of him shooting a man in a busy nightclub might undermine that somewhat. Oh, and the BBC have stooped to a new low. Also tonight, mind letting me know roughly what your weekly food budget is?
£15.
A week. Labour MPs refuse to come on this show to say how they can be Age UK champions despite voting to cut the winter fuel payment and let old people freeze to death in their own homes. We will not let this go, which is why I am fundraising for Friends of the Elderly. We're nearly at £250,000. Go to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors, and more on that tonight. But also,
but every year, thousands of people still sit one of the world's toughest exams.
Heathrow Terminal 4 to Wembley Central Station, please.
As they follow their dream of becoming a London black cabbie.
I've got a remarkable story for you. I speak to a 70-year-old English black cab driver who is being made to pay to take an English language test. Ridiculous.
It is a very clear breach of American electoral law, and that is what the Trump campaign are complaining about.
Donald Trump and Elon Musk go to war with Labour. It's a good job the adults are back in the room. On my panel tonight is the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got landlord and activist Adam Brooks and broadcaster and journalist Nina Mishkov. I wonder, should these two just get a room?
I love the gingers. The late nights voting.
Get ready, Britain. Here we go. I'm on the side of the armed police. Some Labour MPs and the BBC seem to be on the side of a disgusting gang member. Next.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines just after 9 o'clock. First to Turkey, where it's understood a Kurdish rebel group is likely to be behind the deadly terror attack on a defence and aerospace company. Local media is reporting a loud explosion and showed footage of an exchange of gunfire at the site in the Turkish capital of Ankara. It's understood at this point we know 5 people have been killed and 22 injured, some in critical condition. Turkey's Interior Minister said earlier that 2 suspects were neutralised. Meanwhile, security camera images from the attack aired on television show a man carrying a backpack and holding an assault rifle. Sir Keir Starmer has rejected calls for the UK to pay reparations for its historical involvement in the slave trade, insisting the Commonwealth should instead be facing forward together. Speaking on his way to a 6-day Head of Commonwealth meeting in Samoa, the Prime Minister said that he wants to focus on the future. He will arrive at the summit tomorrow, where it's understood the issue of reparations may be forced onto the agenda. The Bahamas and Barbados are among Caribbean nations pushing for trillions of pounds in compensation for Britain's role in slavery and climate change. Meanwhile, Yvette Cooper has announced that firearms officers facing trial over shooting suspects will receive anonymity up to the point of conviction. The Home Secretary's Commons statement follows the jury's decision to clear police marksman Martin Blake of the murder of Chris Cabba, who was unarmed when shot. Further details on the review are expected from the Home Secretary tomorrow. In other news, a 3rd body has been recovered from the English Channel after a migrant boat sank. That's according to the French Coast Guard. A passing ferry recovered the 3rd victim after a body was spotted floating in the water. A 4th migrant was taken to hospital for treatment after being pulled from the water earlier this morning. Around 50 people were on board when the vessel went down, leaving many stranded in the water. To France now, where Gisèle Pelicot, the woman at the centre of a landmark trial of 50 men who were accused of raping her, has taken to the stand today, sending a powerful message to survivors of sexual violence. After being drugged and assaulted by her then-husband, she is standing against the men accused of her abuse. In her testimony, the 72-year-old urged other victims to shed their shame, saying it's not for us to have shame, it's for them. With an open trial and the showing of evidence, Gisèle hopes to inspire other survivors. And the former World's Strongest Man winner and British shot-put record holder, Geoff Capes, has died at the age of 75. Capes set the record for the furthest shot put thrown by a British man with a distance of 21.68 metres in 1980. In a statement, Capes' family said the family of Geoffrey Capes would like to announce his sad passing today, the 23rd of October. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Chris Cabba was a one-man violent crime machine who was shot in the head by a firearms officer who was just doing his job. It is a disgrace that the police officer was charged with murder, and now he has a £10,000 bounty on his head because he was named publicly. Labour made sure that Taylor Swift was safe so that they could go and see her concerts. Will they do something to protect this brave officer and his family? Well, here's Labour MP Kim Johnson.
The media are using racist gang tropes to justify the killing of Chris Cabba. 1,900 people have died in police custody since 1990. The police do have protections. You know, we know that our black communities are over-policed and under-supported. So can the Home Secretary give us assurances that we and our communities are kept safe and that extra protections are not given to the police because they already have the protections they need?
Right. So the media, presumably like me, using racist gang tropes
Hop there with a shotty. Trying to get a rap boy, that night, but TC boys got it. Everybody.
I mean, I didn't shoot that music video for him. Cabba's music video there with the old gun salutes. Oh, there we go. What's this? Oh, it's just some CCTV of him shooting a man in a packed nightclub, isn't it? Gosh, what a trope that is. Goodness me. Yvette Cooper has tried to do an old reverse ferret on this.
When officers act in the most dangerous situations on behalf of the state, it is vital that those officers and their families are not put in further danger during any subsequent legal proceedings. So we will therefore introduce a presumption of anonymity for firearms officers subject to criminal trial following a police shooting in the course of their professional duties up to the point of conviction.
All right, well, the fact is he should never have been named in the first place, that police officer, and numerous Labour politicians like Sadiq Khan did their best to whip up racial tensions, in my view, as have the BBC. This article was community noted on Twitter, so look at this. It says in the community note here, no evidence is given that the community is actually traumatised. It is the opinion of a single man. That headline that they ran with, Chris Cabba verdict leaves community traumatised. The community note, no evidence of that. It's the views of a single man. Here is that single man.
When the outcome came not guilty, the initial views and text messages and correspondence I was getting from the local community is, here we go again, another black life lost. As quoted by the community, at the hands of the police with no justice.
OK, what about the trauma of Chris Cabba's victims? What about the trauma of people who watched as he shot a man? What about the trauma of the police officer who now lives with a bounty on his head? Now we've got rappers like Wretch32 coming out and saying this.
I think we're defo at a place where there's a lack of trust in the institution. Obviously, at this moment in time, I'd obviously like to pay my respects and, you know, hope that we get some justice for Chris Cabba and his family as well, because you have to remember...
think justice has been done there?
I don't think justice has been done. I don't think that, you know, the police, they're good at villainising a person, turning people against a person, and then using that to, you know, feel like they can go into any scenario and kind of, you know, execute a person without any repercussions.
He had a criminal record from the age of 13. It's unbelievable, this, isn't it? Why is it that so many people are taking the side of a thug who had a criminal record for horrific offences from the age of 13? Why is our state broadcaster and some members of the Labour Party trying to stoke racial tensions? If they're on the side of a gangland triggerman with blood-soaked hands, how could you ever be on the side of them? Let's get the thoughts of my panel this evening. We do have the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got landlord and activist Adam Brooks and broadcaster and journalist Nina Mishkov. I'll start with you, Mark, on this. I mean, what on earth is that Labour MP talking about? Racial tropes being used to stir up stuff about Chris Cabba. I mean, the guy's criminal record is not a racial trope. It's on paper.
It's a fact. And as I've said several times on your programme, Patrick, facts cannot be racist. They are facts. All sorts of things went wrong in this case. Not the police officer who fired the gun, but the fact that he was charged. This ludicrous idea that a community is traumatised. Why? I mean, we have gone through justice too diligently, in my mind, should never have been brought to court at all, this case. Absolutely extraordinary. The grounds for trauma are utterly trivial. And another error was, I think, that Cabba's criminal record should have been basically released into the public domain as soon as he was dead. His family, I understand, were taking endless efforts to try and stop it entering the domain at all. So I think some who just sort of walk into the trap of wokery were tricked. They just sort of assumed, here's an innocent guy, he's black, the police officer was white, as I understand it, something terrible has happened here. Had they actually been informed and that information had been raised earlier, not that gangsters deserve, you know, summary execution, but at least bring some context to what actually occurred.
Well, it's vital context as to why the police were there as well.
A complete explanation.
Well, actually, a total explanation, yeah. Adam, when it says that... So we dealt with a bit of Labour MP there, but the BBC is another one now. Leaves a community traumatised.
That is utter nonsense and really quite ridiculous. I have many black friends, ranging from community youth workers to people that have spent time in prison. None of them are traumatised. This article to say that community leaders are traumatised, maybe they should be more traumatised about the 2 people that were killed at the Notting Hill Carnival. Innocent people died there. There was no protest from these white liberal wallies that night or the night after. Gang culture in London is a big problem. And as Mark said, facts cannot be racist. And maybe some of these community leaders might want to address why 78% of gang members in London are black and why I believe it's 61% of knife murderers are black. Now, this is disproportionate and you cannot be racist for pointing out facts. This is a tragedy. No one really deserves to die. He hasn't killed anyone. Yes, he shot at people. I would obviously rather that he did not die. Yeah. And I feel for his mum. No mum should have to bury their son. And I feel sorry for his friends and his family. He shouldn't have died. But he put himself in a position where he was attacking officers with a weapon, which is a 2-ton Audi car.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, I mean, look, I would be inclined to agree with that. Nina, you know, what about the community that's been traumatised by people like Chris Carber?
Well, first of all, I find it extraordinary that you would claim that a community has not been traumatised when you are not of that community, nor have you gone and talked to people of that community. You may well have black friends, but do they live in that specific community? So it's very...
He was a known gangster, Nina.
I understand that.
Preyed on other black people in that community.
I understand that. That's not what we're discussing.
Right.
Carber was obviously not someone that you would actually want to associate with in any way. Right? So and revolting. I hate all that drill stuff. I hate all of that. He did not deserve to die. Nobody deserves to die. We understand that. I am not supporting him, his lifestyle, or any of his gang members.
Do you honestly think the community is grieving for his loss?
I think that they probably are. Why would you disbelieve a report?
Well,
one man.
Based on one man.
Because the BBC headline made it seem as though they'd spoken to... I mean, funnily enough, to be fair, Nina, I get what you're saying, but the BBC also had not gone and actually spoken to people in that community. They'd spoken to one bloke.
Well, I think they spoke to more than one bloke. Oh. They certainly did. And you can't... And the community... You know, every community looks after its own. And whether we agree with the lifestyle or not... then that is what...
No disrespect. I would not grieve for someone in my area that is a known gangster that had terrorised people in my area. So I would not be traumatised. You cannot say...
The real question here is almost, I guess, whether we should care about the trauma. When Pablo Escobar, the Colombian billionaire drugs baron, was shot dead, lots of people in his network suffered trauma. I mean, they lost their jobs, they lost their livelihoods. I mean, the guy was a wrong-un far and way beyond what Carber is, and people were traumatised. My problem with the BBC coverage is that trauma is, if you like, in some ways illegitimate. It shouldn't be engaged with. I mean, you know, his family, for sure.
It's purely one... It's one report about one...
You've got Labour MP, Labour Mayor like Sadiq Khan, you got coming out to bat for Chris Carber immediately. You had Jeremy Corbyn doing the old solidarity...
Nobody cares about Jeremy Corbyn.
Well, I'm sorry, but you can't say that, because actually...
He's a member of Parliament.
Loads of people do.
He's got a big following.
I agree with you, they shouldn't. But loads of people really do. I mean, he was very close to becoming Prime Minister at one point. You've got all of those people. You've got that lady in the House of Commons today talking about it. You've got Kim Johnson. You've got the local MP for the area saying he's supporting the family and all of this. Well, hang on a minute. What about... what about the people he traumatised?
Look, let's talk about this concentration on one report by the BBC. There are many reports.
Name another report then. Name another report
that's the whole thing. If you look at every broadcast. Every broadcast they've got a different
Does it not stoke racial tensions? Does it not
they're not stoking racial. They are not. Look, this is all in the background of, say, the Met. which has been institutionally racist. There was a report only 18 months ago, Baroness Casey, where it was stated, and the Met have accepted, it's because it's on the Metropolitan website, that they're institutionally racist, that they are... So therefore, the community that we're talking about has no faith in the police, and which is why when something like
that's a different problem.
No, it's not a different problem. It is not a different problem. When it happens, when something like that happens, that causes far more tension and therefore trauma.
The question that needs to be put out there, and I'm surprised not many people are talking about it. If Chris Carboll was white and he was in a car that was known for firearm offences the night before and linked, would he have been shot that night? I am 100% certain if I acted that way in a car that was flagged, I would have been shot also. Now, also...
That's not the point. That's not what we're talking about.
That is completely the point.
It is not completely the point.
That is completely the point of the argument. Now, this officer...
You don't know what the point of my argument is because you haven't given me a chance to speak.
Right.
OK, well, fine. Go ahead.
So this officer, I believe, has 8 years unblemished service as well.
Yeah.
It's not as if the police are just going around shooting people willy-nilly in London. In England and Wales, I believe there's only been, I think it's 80 people shot by the police over the last 40 years. This is not America. This isn't happening weekly.
Yeah.
This is very rare. Now, again, I'm sorry someone has lost their life, but this man did his job.
It's a bigger worry than that, I'd say.
Obviously, I can't just say anything. I've hardly said a word. I'm sitting here waiting to talk, and nobody lets me talk.
You've had more time than the two of us.
Oh, we'll play that back and let you see.
Let's just get Mark, then I'll let you have the final word.
If you are worried about institutional racism in the police force, and I don't think that should be hand-waved away, but I think we can say with certainty this is not an example of it in any way, size, shape or form. And to listen to some of the lunatic campaigners here, you might have been given the impression that a wholly innocent black guy had been shot dead by a white racist police officer. That's the general meme that was being put out. Completely untrue. Institutional racism does not apply to this case at all.
When you get, Lena, final word for you on this. When you get people like that Labour MP and you get, you know, the rapper who was on Sky News talking, the rapper certainly said about the execution, right? Labour MP making it sound as though this guy was murdered. There's a police officer with a £10,000 bounty on his head at the moment. You know, they're not endangering his life.
They are endangering his life, and everything we discuss endangers his life. And the fact that his life is endangered was, in the first place, was because they gave his name out. I am all with Yvette Cooper, and the government has moved very quickly to change that situation so they can remain anonymous. I am talking about institutional racism as a background, as a backdrop to why a community would be traumatised when they fear the police, they don't trust the police, and the policing should be by consent, and it's not. And so, therefore, when this happens, that equates to trauma. And that's my point, which is what we're discussing.
All right, OK, all right. Look, all of you, thank you very, very much. I don't know whether or not people might have been traumatised by some of the things that we've heard so far tonight, but there we go. I've got loads more coming your way. Before I tell you exactly what that is, though, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. The clock is ticking on your chance to win, because the lines close on Friday. £36,000 in tax-free cash. Here's how it could be yours.
Man, good luck.
Still to come, absolutely astonishing revelation this, so hold on to your hats. A Justice Minister has made this extraordinary admission that judges may have wanted to make an example of those convicted over the summer riots. We've got more detail for you. Well, that will be no comfort to the loved ones of Peter Lynch, the 61-year-old grandfather who died in jail this week after being sentenced to more than 2 years in jail for shouting at police during the disorder. Is it time now for an inquiry into the sentences handed out to the rioters? I've got human rights lawyer David Haig joining me soon. But first, well, Trump has gone to war with Keir Starmer, so has Elon Musk, actually, accusing the hard-left Labour Party of interfering in the US election. That's after Starmer's party sent 100 activists to campaign on behalf of Trump's presidential rival, Kamala Harris. Has the Prime Minister wrecked our special relationship? Going head-to-head on that, the former aide to Margaret Thatcher, now Gardener, who's in Washington for us, and the election campaign strategist Pablo Ohana, who I think is also stateside, so stay tuned.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
My kingdom for a voice. Scientists have, I can't believe this story, scientists have incredibly recreated the voice of Richard III using both his skull shape and a knowledge of medieval speech patterns. Me neither. The result is that the king, who was famously killed at the Battle of Bosworth in 1485, would have spoken in English close to that of a man from modern-day Yorkshire or Somerset. Let's take a listen.
The sun shines with no less light and splendour, nor does it suffer any diminution of its strength.
Let's discuss this further with Yvonne Morley-Chisholm, the voice coach behind the project, who spent 10 years researching how the monarch would have sounded. Yvonne, you can probably see from my face, I have no idea how this works. Can you enlighten me as to what all this is about?
Yes, thank you very much indeed, Dawn. So, yes, I had a mad idea 10 years ago. I normally work with actors where we have a recording of a historical person, and we do something called vocal profiling to train the actor who's going to be performing on stage or screen to move their tongue tip, their jaw, their lips, everything, and get behind the personality of who they're playing. We obviously have quite a lot of that missing from Richard. We don't have a recording of him, but I wondered how far we could go. And a key player in this has been and is Professor Caroline Wilkinson, who over a decade ago created his face, first of all, from his skull. Now, on the day we, as Shakespeare would say, shuffle off our mortal coil, every little dent and dimple in the bones says how fit and strong the muscles were. So I thought, OK, we know what his face could do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
Weekdays on GB News. Wake up to breakfast every day from 6 a.m. Followed by Britain's newsroom at 9:30. At noon, it's Good Afternoon Britain. Followed by Martin Daubney from 3 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. I've got loads on, including should we now have an inquiry into the sentences handed out to rioters? I've got an astonishing revelation to show you, a document that I think some people involved probably wished had never come to light. But first, has Keir Starmer wrecked our special relationship? The Prime Minister has been forced to deny that senior Labour figures like his new Chief of Staff, Morgan McSweeney, advised or assisted the US presidential candidate Kamala Harris when they attended the Democratic National Convention in August. The denial comes just hours after Donald Trump took the extraordinary step of accusing the Labour Party of interfering in the American election. It was revealed last week that Labour staff organised a trip for almost 100 activists to campaign for Kamala Harris. Starmer has tried to claim that those volunteers were campaigning in their spare time. But it wasn't enough to convince Trump, who issued an unprecedented statement last night saying the far-left Labour Party has inspired Kamala's dangerously liberal policies and rhetoric. In recent weeks, they've recruited and sent party members to campaign for Kamala in critical battleground states, attempting to influence the election. Well, now the billionaire owner of X, Elon Musk, has piled in. He's praised Trump. He says back in the UK, the Reform UK leader Nigel Farage as well has had some harsh words for Starmer earlier.
Here's the point. The Labour Party today are trying desperately to backtrack by saying people will be going at their own personal cost. Well, you know, airfares to America right now are very, very expensive. There was no mention of that in the original advertisement at all.
So I am asking, has Starmer wrecked the special relationship? Let me know your thoughts. gbnews.com/your say. Tweet me at GBNews. Go and vote in our poll. But going head-to-head on this, the former aide to Margaret Thatcher, Niall Gardner, and the election campaign strategist Pablo Ohana. Chaps, thank you very much, as ever. Niall, I'll start with you. What is the word on the street stateside, then? I mean, are they seriously saying that Labour has wrecked the special relationship here?
Yeah, great to be on the show with you tonight, Patrick. And without a doubt, I think this scandal is very damaging for Keir Starmer. It's very damaging for the Labour Party. Many Americans view this as a direct intervention in the US presidential election by a foreign political party. I've spoken to numerous people here in Washington who are outraged, actually, over Labour's actions. This will be hugely counterproductive if indeed there's a second Trump presidency. And I think it will greatly complicate relations between London and Washington. This is a dim-witted, dangerous move by Labour involving around 100 activists. And surely the Prime Minister knew exactly what was going on. He really should issue an apology and call on his woke workforce to return back to the UK, frankly. It's very damaging for Britain. It hurts Britain's image, I think, here in the United States. It's a catastrophically bad move, I think, by Labour, and it's fundamentally wrong as well.
Pablo, I mean, if I called you a neo-Nazi sympathising sociopath, a dangerous clown, a racist KKK and Nazi sympathiser, and then the chief of staff of my party attended, on the Labour Party's dime, by the way, the Democratic National Convention, and then, as if by magic, a couple of months later, 100 of my staff went and campaigned against you, I reckon that would wreck our relationship, don't you?
I think the UK and US relationship has survived more than a few campaigners going out there. We've had generations of war and disputes. I don't think this is going to do anything about it. I think, honestly, this is just a campaign in free fall. To call this interference is like saying that cheering at a football match affects the game. These are progressives sending progressives to help a progressive win. It is not that surprising. Just as much as Kamala Harris inspires lots of progressives to campaign with her, Donald Trump inspires the same. We've seen Nigel Farage, we've seen Liz Truss over here. They were both at the RNC. I don't think it's that surprising. I think this whole thing is extraordinarily overblown. And by the way, it is not news over here. Nobody, literally nobody, is talking about this.
That's a complete and utter lie, actually, and a completely ridiculous statement. It is in the media here. In fact, I was just watching a story on Fox News about it this morning. Plenty of people are talking about it. It's a big political issue here in the United States. And this idea that this doesn't matter when you have 100 Labour activists being shipped over to the United States, interfere in the US presidential election, this is unprecedented. And I do think it's an incredibly dangerous move as well. The vast majority of Americans will not welcome this, frankly.
Pablo, we've got Labour MPs who are more bothered about places like Gaza than they are Blackburn. And we've got a load of Labour volunteers who seem to be more bothered about places in America than they do in their own communities. Why don't they just help people out in Britain?
Well, first of all, this is not unprecedented. UK and US people go back and forth. They campaign in each other's elections because it matters, because we do have a relationship between the UK
why doesn't
and
the
the
Labour Party and their volunteers just focus on Britain? Why are they always bothered about things going on in other countries like Gaza or like Kamala Harris?
Because it really, really, really matters who gets elected as president of the United States. You look at the state of Europe and you look at what's happening with Putin invading Ukraine. Trump is not going to help that. Trump is going to make that worse. He's going to concede Ukraine to Russia. And the only way to stop that is to elect Kamala Harris. It is entirely unsurprising that Labour is thinking, do you know what? It wouldn't be unhelpful if someone who actually is pro-Europe,
just ask what evidence there is for
pro-Ukraine.
that, Pablo, because what is Kamala saying?
Trump has said he's going to concede Ukraine. Right. He has absolutely no interest in combating Putin.
That's complete and utter. It's complete and utter rubbish. I mean, this sounds like nothing other than propaganda. And you know, this idea that a British political party should intervene in the US presidential election, that's fundamentally wrong. We're talking about 100 activists, and this group's been put together by the head of operations for the Labour Party itself, actually. So it's not just one or two people going over. You're talking about 100 current and former Labour Party staff directly intervening in swing states in the United States, and that is fundamentally wrong, which is why there's a big backlash here. Also, I expect there's going to be probably congressional hearings into this. This is a big scandal, and if Trump returns as president, you can be sure that there'll be very sharp words, I think, for Keir Starmer, and also, of course, for David Lammy, who I expect will only last about a week or so as Foreign Secretary if Trump does return as president.
Bad politics from Keir Starmer. It's all very well and good saying people in their own time often go on campaigns. This is Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner when she wasn't having a rather bizarre interaction with Oliver Dowden across the dispatch box today, which we will come on to. But people in their own times often go on campaigns. It happens in all political parties. But if Keir Starmer had anything about him, then presumably he would have said, this is a terrible look, Pablo, don't do it. Or was he too busy just giving away the Chagos Islands to notice?
I think Keir Starmer probably had nothing to do with it. I can't imagine he is aware of things like this.
So he's not in control. He's not in control of his own party's activists.
He's the Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. He doesn't care what staff and also former staff are doing. He has more important things to be doing than worrying about what former staff are doing in the USA. It is not surprising these people are going over in their own time. They care that a progressive wins. They see the threat of Donald Trump against our country, against Europe, against the US.
Pablo, this all originated because the head of operations at the Labour Party put a post out there saying, I have nearly 100 Labour Party staff going to the US in the next few weeks. She has since deleted that post, all right? So that is the head of operations at the Labour Party. That is an organised attempt by the government of the day in this country to try to help out a political party during an election in America. And if you didn't think there was anything wrong with it, then why did she delete it? You're
conflating two things. The government and the Labour Party are different things. What the Labour Party is doing and what Labour activists are doing is different to what the Prime Minister is doing. And by the way, tons of Conservatives are putting over here. Does it only matter if Labour or Lib Dems or Progressives do it?
Fine. OK. Look, we're gonna draw a line under this now, but we'll have to wait and see, won't we, what happens. If Trump wins, then we'll find out whether or not he has had any bearing. Both of you, thank you very much. Massively appreciate your time. 93% of you on Twitter agreed that Starmer has wrecked the special relationship. So there you go. Coming up, what's the past tense of go or the future tense of eat? Do you know the difference between an adjective and an adverb? Those are just some of the questions that hundreds of cabbies in Lincolnshire are being forced to answer after a local council made it mandatory for taxi drivers to take an English language test, which I think I might have just failed trying to read that there. But anyway, no matter how long they've been living in the country for, I'm joined by a cabbie who is furious, and you're not going to want to miss that. But first, a Labour Justice Minister has let the cat out of the bag. He's claimed that judges may have wanted to make an example of people convicted over the summer riots. Is it time we had an inquiry, especially in the light of the fact that one of them, Peter Lynch, has now died? Stay tuned.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through into this evening and overnight and into tomorrow, largely dry with a mix of cloud and clear spells. Still fairly windy across the northwest of Scotland, though. We can see this clearly with the squeeze in the eyes of ours as this frontal system makes its way in. Otherwise, generally high pressure across most of the country, bringing us that mix of cloud and clear spells overnight, turning a little bit chilly under those clearer skies too. Across Scotland, though, a cloudier picture. Plenty of blustery winds overnight with a risk of coastal gales by the time we reach the morning, and just some outbreaks of rain edging into the Outer Hebrides. A fairly cool night under those clearer skies, but not turning quite as chilly as it did last night. Now, those blustery winds are going to continue across Scotland, still with those risk of gales, particularly around any exposed spots and across any coasts, with just that rain edging into the far west. Otherwise, largely dry, plenty of cloud, quite a cloudy start across Northern Ireland too, and across the north of England, and some blustery winds just blowing up through across the Irish Sea as well. And once again, across the rest of England and Wales, a mix of cloud and clear spells to start the day. And that pretty much sets us up. Once again, a mix of clouds, sunny spells, the best of the sunshine across East Anglia, Sussex and Kent, for example. And then we still have that rain continuing to slowly edge its way into the northwest, so western parts of Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, starting to see those outbreaks of rain as we head into the afternoon, and still those blustery winds continuing. But highs of around 17, 18 Celsius in the south, so feeling pleasant for the time of year. Heading into Friday, quite an unsettled day. We've got those outbreaks of rain erratically moving their way eastwards across the country, some heavy downpours at times. As this clears away, we will see some brighter weather along with some showers too. This sets us up for a fairly unsettled weekend with rain and showers, so stay update. Otherwise, that's it from me. Bye for now.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion. Mark meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Now, the Justice Minister and Labour peer, Lord Ponsonby, has admitted that judges may have wanted to make an example when they sentenced those who took part in the summer disorder. The official parliamentary record shows this, OK? That during a House of Lords debate yesterday about the sentences that were handed out to people like Peter Lynch, by the way, who has sadly now died, Lord Ponsonby said this was a particular situation where maybe the judges felt that even people who were of previous good character needed to make an example of. Well, that astonishing admission comes after 61-year-old Peter Lynch, who was jailed for 2 years and 8 months for shouting abuse at police officers during those protests, reportedly took his own life in prison on Monday. It's an astonishing admission, that, and I think something that needs to be investigated. Very pleased to be joined now by human rights lawyer David Hay. David, thank you. That has to be looked at, doesn't it? These sentences, for a lot of people, did seem to be astonishingly long. A man there, of previous good character, as far as we're aware, is now unfortunately dead. And you have a Justice Minister there suggesting that there were intentionally long sentences dished out to make an example of people. Should that not be looked at?
I think, good evening, Patrick. I think absolutely is the short answer. And, you know, the last few months, particularly when we look around the riots, there's been some unforgivable, I think, injustices in the sentencing system and in the policing system as well, and in the justice system in general. And absolutely it needs to be looked at. But I don't think it's just that. I think we need to have a thorough review of our justice system and our judiciary, from how they're appointed, who they're appointed by, who they are, their backgrounds, and sentencing as well. I mean, we only need to look at when Keir Starmer was talking about the riots back in the summer. He was demanding urgent action, long sentences, etc. Did that influence the judges? Should it be able to influence the judges?
So they would say because I've had a conversation before this revelation today. I've been told constantly, well, they're beyond contempt, judges. They cannot be swayed in any way, shape or form. Is the implication now that they were?
Well, that's I think certainly the implication, and something that you just mentioned. I mean, to give you an example, every other public role, from an MP to a councillor, etc., has a register of interest and a register of conflicts. We've seen a lot, obviously, being referred to with all the gifts that the politicians received recently. Judges don't, because apparently they're above that. So that just gives you an idea of how the judiciary consider themselves. Why should they not declare any interest that they may have? So when you're dealing with that, you look at the wider issue, there's a bigger issue there that needs to be dealt with.
Yeah, indeed. And look, you are a human rights lawyer, OK? So you are, involved in the kind of sentencing guidelines, etc., etc. When you see someone getting 2 years, 8 months for something like what Peter Lynch did, which, again, I'm not condoning, by the way, he shouted some very fruity stuff, all right, and things that I would not go outside and certainly would not encourage anybody else to shout at all, whether it's in public or not, actually. However, 2 years, 8 months, very long time. Unfortunately, he is now dead. The reports suggest that maybe he took his own life. And when you see comments like that the judges might have wanted to, quote, make an example of someone who didn't have any previous records, Lucy Connolly as well is another example of someone tweeted something awful, but again, 2 years, 7 months, I think she's got behind bars. Would that kind of sentence only come, in your view, if they were trying to deliberately make examples of people?
Well, absolutely. I mean, if you look at, say, for instance, the violent disorder offence, the judges have an ability from a community order up to 5 years. That's within their something that they can do in terms of sentencing. And of course, making an example of certain individuals in certain cases is something the judges should do. But those examples that you've given me and many others, your average working day person that's no previous record, that's just done something in the heat of the moment, are they really people you should be making examples of? I don't think so.
How would we go about getting some kind of inquiry, do you think? I mean, this revelation now, I think, is a bit of a cock-up, frankly, from this guy in the House of Lords. So how do we go about getting some kind of inquiry?
Well, you'd need to have for it to have teeth, you would need to have a judge-led inquiry. However, therein lies the problem, because judges reviewing the work of judges. I mean, and that's the problem.
We maybe need to get you on it. David, thank you very much. Always great to see you. You take care. It's David Haig there, human rights lawyer. Well, look, no doubt everyone involved will deny any wrongdoing, but I think it's worthwhile asking the question, don't you? Coming up at 10 p.m.
Do a drill or a pen. 4-man, 3 shanks on the up block, 24-inch, will leave him drenched.
Yeah, Keir Starmer let that violent thug out of prison early yesterday. That's despite his 12-year sentence for conspiracy to kidnap, GBH, making threats with a machete, and that is quite literally just the half of it. So, welcome to Starmer's Britain, where criminals like that go free, but some people who shout something outside a Holiday Inn, they go to jail. I'll give you my take in my take at 10. But first, do you know the difference between an adjective and an adverb? Yeah, OK, me neither. But I've got a remarkable story about an English black cab driver who might now quit because he's being forced to pay for his own language test. Stay tuned.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect, and then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week is Chocolate Week, the ultimate celebration of everything rich, sweet and indulgent.
Yes, and we now have the best person in the studio with us to satisfy all of your chocolate cravings. We're joined now by master chocolatier Ollie the Choc. Ollie,
hello.
Really
Hey,
good
Ollie.
to see you this
Thank
morning.
you for having me.
And you brought some of your chocolate in with you.
I did. I brought some tasting samples. You're very welcome to help yourself.
So what have you got here? Tell us.
So this is my signature chocolate. I call it the Holy Grail. It's got sea salt flakes, crushed Oreo, caramel fudge pieces, very Moorish.
I love a caramel and salt combo, just, you know. I feel like you see it everywhere now. Look.
You won't be disappointed.
Look, I want everyone to see a close-up of this one. Can we get a shot on this one? So this is Oreo, there we are, caramel and salt. Do you want to try some?
You go first. Help yourselves. And then this bar of chocolate is a little bit of a wild card. That's a mystery flavour, so...
OK, I love a mystery.
I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Hold on this one. This one's amazing.
Are you?
Oreo, caramel.
That's my biggest seller.
I'll keep my palate clean for this. So this is a mystery flavour.
You've got to guess what that is.
Is that a nut in there, I see? Right, here we go. Ready?
I'm not saying anything.
Talk us through.
Very crunchy.
For me, I'm all about textures in chocolate.
Me too.
It has got a good crunch to it, hasn't it? It's not the kind of flavour that you would expect.
Oh, I can't get it.
Is it sweet? Is it salty?
No, it's salty, yeah.
It's
okay.
salty.
Hang on, bit more.
Okay.
Bit more.
I mean, just keep going.
Crisps? Wait,
It is crispy, it's crunchy. Could it be crisps?
I think it could be crisps. Yeah, it's crisps.
So what flavour?
Salt and vinegar. Cheese and onion.
Yes,
Salt
nailed
and
it. You know.
Oh, you're much better than me.
Love that.
Do you know what? I think I've got a bit of a cold, so my taste buds are
Oh, you're going to blame that, are you?
That's my excuse. That's delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Now, a Lincolnshire council has sparked outrage after forcing local cabbies to take English lessons, even if they are native speakers who have lived in the UK all their lives. South Kesteven District Council originally introduced the rule in August after complaints from passengers about the level of English spoken by some drivers. Well, the regulation initially applied only to new drivers, but now existing drivers will also have to fork out nearly 50 quid to take the test. Well, local taxi drivers have reacted with fury to the plan, setting up a Facebook group to campaign against the rule change. I will just stress these are private taxi drivers. So I'm delighted to say that I'm joined by one of those cabbies now. It's Barry Drake. Barry, thank you very much. So what's going on here? Are you going to have to pay to take an English language test despite, you know, having worked there all your life?
Hi, good evening, Patrick. Yes, this seems to what's happening at the moment. I've been a taxi driver for 17 years in the South Kesteven district region. I've got friends, one called Michael Johnson has been doing it for 39 years. We have to go into the offices every year to renew our badge. So they know full well we're English, but now decided they're going to make us pay to prove we're English. So if I can produce my school certificates, like from 55 years ago, when like my English language exam, GCSE, I wouldn't have to pay. But not in my wildest dreams did I ever have a think when I got to 70, I would have to prove to anybody in the world that I'm English.
No. And this is because there obviously must have been an influx of taxi drivers in your area who can't speak English or can't speak English very well, of which you are not one.
Well,
and now you are suffering.
Well, obviously I'm not one, but they well be they might well be, mate. But the thing is, I only work 2 days. I just work Friday and Saturday to top my pension up.
Yeah.
There probably is. I don't know.
My point is you shouldn't have to suffer, Barry. That's the point. You shouldn't have to suffer. And anyone who realistically just spoke to you for like a second would realise that you don't need to take any of these tests. Are you going to do it then? Are you going to fork out 50 quid?
No.
So that's it for you then? Is it what? How many years have you been driving your taxis? That's going to come to an end?
17 years, and I've got all my paperwork come through to renew my badge, which runs out on the 7th of December. And I'd be totally humiliated and insulted to have to go to prove I'm English at my age. When they all know me anyway. They all know me. They know I'm English. They know everybody. But it's just like, I don't know, a bit of a money raising thing for the council, maybe. I don't know. I think a lot of it is like what they're saying. It's like a diversity thing. You've got to be fair to everybody. So if you get drivers who probably come from abroad and now doing it, to be fair to them, we have to do the same test. But no, I don't agree with that. They know me. They know who I am. I send them emails and write them letters, and they know full well I speak perfect English. And also, we've also got to take a driving proficiency course, which means if you've got a clean licence, clean driving licence, 30 years, we have to pay another 90 quid to go on a driving proficiency test to prove we can drive, which is another 90 quid. That's fine. Other councils, other local councils only do that for new drivers. Our council is telling us we've got to do it. So I've got to pay 90 quid for that, 50 quid for my English language skills test. And it's just not on, mate. It's
so
not on,
90 quid to prove that you can drive in your own country, which you've been doing for goodness knows how long, right? And then another 50 quid to prove that you can speak English. Despite,
Absolutely.
I've understood every word you said tonight, Barry, and I would delight in the idea if you managed to pick me up one day and take me around somewhere. I think it would be certainly much more of a pleasant experience than some of the Ubers that I have the misfortune of getting in, where I absolutely cannot communicate.
Thank you very much,
Cannot communicate with people, and I am very. Sometimes it's not even the bloke in the picture on the app who picks me up. For goodness sake. We don't see anyone... Do you feel a bit discriminated against, Barry, just quickly?
Oh, totally. Totally discriminated against, yes, mate.
Yeah, well, I'm very sorry to hear that. I hope that something can be done about this, Barry, and that sense prevails. I would not want to see you forced off the roads. And in fact, I think we need more people like you, frankly. So, Barry, thank you very much for coming on and giving us your time tonight, and hopefully something can get done about that. That's Barry Drake there. This is just the absolute lunacy of the world that we live in at the moment, isn't it? In order to appease people who can't speak English and quite possibly can't drive, people like Barry, who can speak English and can drive, have to suffer. What are we doing? In response, South Kesteven District Council, from 2021, this test was introduced only for new drivers. Subsequently, in May 2024, in the interests of equality and safety, the council agreed to apply it for all drivers. There are provisions in place for existing drivers to undertake the English language test if they are unable to provide the necessary evidence of English language proficiency. Talk to them. Talk to them. Is that Barry? Yes, it's Barry. He can speak English. Let him drive his flipping car. Unbelievable. Coming up in just a few minutes' time.
Do a drill or a pen. 4-man, 3 shanks on the up block, 24-inch, will leave him drenched.
Keir Starmer let that violent thug walk free from prison early yesterday. Some of his rap sheet includes 5 years of his 12-year sentence for GBH kidnap, perverting the course of justice, and that's just the half of it. So why is he allowed out whilst unfortunately people who sent nasty social media posts are banged up for years? Stay tuned.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through into this evening and overnight and into tomorrow, largely dry with a mix of cloud and clear spells. Still fairly windy across the northwest of Scotland, though. We can see this clearly with the squeeze in the isobars as this frontal system makes its way in. Otherwise, generally high pressure across most of the country, bringing us that mix of cloud and clear spells overnight, turning a little bit chilly under those clearer skies too. Across Scotland, though, a cloudier picture. Plenty of blustery winds overnight with a risk of coastal gales by the time we reach the morning, and just some outbreaks of rain edging into the Outer Hebrides. A fairly cool night under those clearer skies, but not turning quite as chilly as it did last night. Now, those blustery winds are going to continue across Scotland, still with those risk of gales, particularly around any exposed spots and across any coasts, with just that rain edging into the far west. Otherwise, largely dry, plenty of cloud, quite a cloudy start across Northern Ireland too, and across the north of England, and some blustery winds just blowing up through across the Irish Sea as well. And once again, across the rest of England and Wales, a mix of cloud and clear spells to start the day. And that pretty much sets us up. Once again, a mix of clouds, sunny spells, the best of the sunshine across East Anglia, Sussex and Kent, for example. And then we still have that rain continuing to slowly edge its way into the northwest, so western parts of Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, starting to see those outbreaks of rain as we head into the afternoon, and still those blustery winds continuing. But highs of around 17, 18 Celsius in the south, so feeling pleasant for the time of year. Heading into Friday, quite an unsettled day. We've got those outbreaks of rain erratically moving their way eastwards across the country, some heavy downpours at times. As this clears away, we will see some brighter weather along with some showers too. This sets us up for a fairly unsettled weekend with rain and showers, so stay update. Otherwise, that's it from me. Bye for now.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 10 p.m. I'm Patrick Christys. Tonight.
Do a drill or a pen. 4-man, 3 shanks on the up block, 24-inch, we'll leave him drenched.
That monster and designer clobber was released early by Keir Starmer.
He then says that you come back a few minutes later with a boiling kettle and that you go to pour it over his head.
Kidnap, GBH, threats with a machete, trying to pour boiling water over a child. Meanwhile, tonight, ICAM revealed that a member of the House of Lords said that judges might have given deliberately long prison sentences to people with no previous convictions during the summer riots. Well, is that two-tier justice? Is this what happened to Peter Lynch, who allegedly took his own life in prison over the weekend? We'll get to the bottom of it. And mind letting me know roughly what your weekly food budget is?
£15.
A week. Labour MPs are refusing to come on this show to say how they can be Age UK champions despite voting for pensioners to freeze in their own homes this winter, which is why I am fundraising for Friends of the Elderly. We nearly got £250,000, so thank you so much, everybody. I'll give you a little update on what's going to happen this weekend very shortly, but go to www.justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. We can hit that target. Also tonight, why are Labour always on the side of the wrong uns?
Particularly this week, while the media are using racist gang tropes to justify the killing of Chris Cabba.
I mean, the actual footage of him shooting a man in a nightclub might disprove her point a bit there. Also tonight...
It is a very clear breach of American electoral law, and that is what the Trump campaign are complaining about.
We've got an update for you. After Donald Trump and Elon Musk went to war with Labour, it's a good job, isn't it, that the adults are back in the room. On my panel tonight is the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood, landlord and activist Adam Brooks, and broadcaster and journalist Nina Mishkov. I wonder, do these two just need to get a room?
I love the gingers. The late nights voting.
Get ready, Britain, here we go. Someone needs to answer for the death of Peter Lynch. Next.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines just after 10 o'clock. A 60-year-old woman has been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter after 3 people were found dead at a care home in Swanage. It comes just hours after they said the deaths were being treated as unexplained and possible carbon monoxide poisoning is the primary line of inquiry. South Western Ambulance Service responded in the early hours of this morning, dispatching a hazard response team and 10 double-crewed ambulances. Chief Superintendent Heather Dixie said 7 further people have been taken to hospital as a precaution, but assured that there is no risk to the wider public. Now to Turkey, where it's understood a Kurdish rebel group is likely to be behind the deadly terror attack on a defence and aerospace company. Local media is reporting a loud explosion and showed footage of an exchange of gunfire at the site in the Turkish capital of Ankara. It's understood at this point 5 people are known to have been killed and 22 injured, some in a critical condition. Turkey's Interior Minister said earlier that 2 suspects were neutralised. Meanwhile, security camera images from the attack aired on television showing a man carrying a backpack and holding an assault rifle. Keir Starmer insists his relationship with Donald Trump is intact, despite claims Labour interfered in the US election. Trump's campaign filed a complaint accusing Labour of illegally supporting Kamala Harris, citing meetings between senior Labour officials and her team. Starmer dismissed the claims, stating Labour members are in the US voluntarily, as they've done in previous elections, and said he'll work with whoever becomes the next US president. Meanwhile, Kamala Harris has denounced Donald Trump as a fascist who wants unchecked power after allegations were made that the former president admired Adolf Hitler. His ex-chief of staff, John Kelly, said that he had witnessed Trump praising the Nazi Germany dictator on more than one occasion. The Trump campaign has categorically denied the allegations made by John Kelly, who has since become a Trump critic. But Vice President Kamala Harris used the opportunity to criticise her presidential rival.
It's deeply troubling and incredibly dangerous that Donald Trump would invoke Adolf Hitler, the man who is responsible for the deaths of 6 million Jews and hundreds of thousands of Americans. All of this is further evidence for the American people of who Donald Trump really is. So the bottom line is this: we know what Donald Trump wants. He wants unchecked power. The question in 13 days will be, what do the American people want?
Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Patrick.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
We might have the strongest possible evidence yet for two-tier justice in Britain. Today, it emerged that Isaac Donko, known as Young Driz, has been let out of prison. He was locked up in 2019 after enlisting 4 boys under the age of 18 to attack a 16-year-old boy. He then filmed the victim, who was threatened with a machete, and was told that Donko would cut him up, and he attempted to pour boiling water over the boy's head. The boy's parents were called, and that 16-year-old was forced to beg them for 1,500 quid so that he could be released. Now, here is Young Driz on film in police custody.
He then says that you come back a few minutes later with a boiling kettle and that you go to pour it over his head. I feel like it's all coming on top of it at the moment, Isaac. Or are you just sitting there planning on how you're going to get this victim to withdraw the statement?
He even boasted about shooting people and other crimes in a music video.
Do a drill or a pen. 4-man, 3 shanks on the up block, 24-inch, will leave him drenched.
Yeah. He was sentenced for kidnap and false imprisonment, GBH, and perverting the course of justice. But because of Labour's early release scheme, it meant that 2 of his 4 offences made him eligible for that early release. So now, naturally, he's back out on the streets. It doesn't really seem fair, does it, when you have people like Peter Lynch, who was sentenced to 2 years, 8 months, despite not committing a violent offence during the summer riots, and who apparently took his own life behind bars. I have called for there to be an inquiry into the incredibly harsh sentence handed down to Mr Lynch, not least by a judge who previously allowed a woman who killed a cyclist and a man who admitted committing a sexual act with a child to walk free. However, today, GB News came into possession of this extract from the House of Lords records, which reveals that the Justice Minister, Lord Ponsonby, made this admission about people locked up for their role in the disorder. So here he is. He says, this was a particular situation where maybe the judges felt that even people who were of previous good character needed to be made an example of, but that was a matter for them. Well, that is an astonishing admission about potentially biased judges, and one that needs to be investigated. Did they feel that people needed to make an example of because of stuff like this?
And I'm now expecting substantive sentencing before the end of this week. That should send a very powerful message.
OK. Did this apply to people like Lucy Connolly, who was jailed for 31 months for inciting racial hatred? Now, she was a childminder with no previous convictions who did tweet something foul about asylum seekers. I'm not condoning what she said. But did this apply to Peter Lynch, who has now died? The judiciary, the Justice Minister and Keir Starmer have serious questions to answer. Let's get thoughts from my panel this evening. We've got the Director of Popular Conservatives, Mark Littlewood. We've got landlord and activist Adam Brooks and journalist and broadcaster Nina Mishkov. Mark, quite an astonishing admission there. Do we not need to have an inquiry now, especially in the light of Peter Lynch's death behind bars and the release of our mate Young Driz?
Yeah, I mean, more importantly, congrats to GB News for going through Hansard and finding what Lord Ponsonby said. It's not the position, it shouldn't be the position of any judge to make an example of someone for wider public policy purposes. If Parliament or the government want to recategorise different offences, legalise this, have stronger sentences for that, that should be passed through Parliament. The idea that judges are trying to affect public policy is absolutely chilling. And on the...
But he didn't actually state it as a fact.
No, I know you said that appeared to be...
He didn't say...
He read it out. I mean, if there's any danger of that, that's quite serious, that our judges are using sentencing for public policy ends. Must not be allowed to happen in a fair democratic society at all, ever. Should be completely banned, and there's an implication in that answer in Hansard that it's occurring. On the early release... Look, on one, let's be realistic. Almost all prisoners are released from jail. Murderers, rapists, the whole lot. If the Labour government wants to say, look, the previous government didn't build enough prison spaces, their early release schedule should have been the non-violent people come out first. Right? If you are in jail for any non-violent offence, you go to the top of the list for early release, any violent offence to the bottom of the list. And I find it extraordinary that these sort of characters are being released when you've got people behind bars who have committed a criminal offence but are not a violent threat to society.
Exactly.
So even if you need early release, their ordering is absolutely wrong, unconscionable even.
They told us that there was going to be no violent prisoners released early. Yet this man was so violent and so feared that a whole task force of the Met were deployed to take him down. Now, again, his crimes, kidnapping, torture, conspiracy to imprison, grievous bodily harm, blackmail. We see the video. The BBC did a documentary on his case. I mean, he really is a serious gangster.
Yeah.
And 5 years he's done out of 12 and a half years. What is the point of these sentences being handed down? For me, I'd like to see a complete overhaul of the system. If you get 10 years, you do 10 years. Because people like Lucy Connolly, yes, she tweeted something very foul, as you said.
Yeah.
Is she a danger to society? Am I scared that my kids are going to run into Lucy Connolly?
Well, she was a childminder.
No, I'm not. She had no previous, OK? Surely she could have got community service, maybe an internet ban or a tagging or something like that. There is no need for a lady like that to be in prison.
Are we being asked to believe, Nina, that a bloke, Keir Starmer, who will not stop telling us about his legal history and his legal mind, stands up, makes a comment where he says publicly, I expect there to be strong sentences, and then judges go out and give longer sentences to people who shouted things at police officers than paedophiles and someone who's actually killed a cyclist, amongst other people, that they weren't lent on by the Prime Minister here?
I don't know that they were lent on, but I would just like to say this guy should not have been released, and I think it's a complete mistake. It's a complete mistake, and whether he's done 40% or 50%, he should be kept inside, away from society, until we can find a way of dealing with him. And that is there's no equivocation about that.
No.
But then there are people who were released in the last tranche who were done by mistake, and they are all back in now. I think they've all been brought back in, so that hopefully that case will be looked at, and he'll be brought back in, which is the great thing.
Well, hopefully, yeah.
But this wasn't an error. This wasn't an administrative error. This was a decision.
Well, the thing is, that is an error on their part in not taking into account the fact that they said nobody with any violent history or violent crimes would be considered in this scheme.
Yeah.
So that's exactly what they've said.
We took a straw poll of the nation on whether or not young Drizzy should be allowed out, or who would you rather have in prison? You know, Peter Lynch or young Drizzy? I mean...
That's exactly right. And going back to... Because I think, Patrick, you raised this really important point about how should our judges, who are supposed to be independent of the political process, how are they supposed to react when the Prime Minister says, now I expect you, when I say jump, I expect you to ask how high? If Keir Starmer's government wants to make it a much more serious offence to tweet something foul and offensive than it is to actually engage in violent conduct, they should pilot a criminal justice bill through Parliament that specifically sets sentencing guidelines. It's not appropriate for the Prime Minister, on a nudge and a wink and in a TV interview, to indicate what judges should do.
We don't know
really
that happened.
Well, we did. We've seen the TV interview.
I say what he said, but then the thing is, that whole situation of the riots had to be brought to a swift conclusion, and justice had to be seen to be meted out to prevent it going further.
Yeah, but hang on. But the problem you get, if you want an independent judiciary, is that the Prime Minister, we've seen the clip, we know exactly what he said in public. If the Prime Minister is giving essentially guidance or a nudge to judges about how they should interpret sentencing, then I'm afraid the judiciary and politics have got way too mixed up.
And Adam, a man has died. A man has died. Exactly how he died, we're not 100% sure. But a man has died in prison. And that man was, many people might think, made an example of.
Look, I think his sentence was disproportionately harsh. And I've read up on it. I don't condone the behaviour that I've seen that he did that day, but I do not believe that warranted a custodial sentence, especially, was it 3 years?
2 years. 2 years, 8 months.
Right. Now, going back to the rapper that has just been released, if he then reoffends, if he hurts someone, he's obviously quite a violent guy. If someone gets hurt in the next few years because he has been released early, this is going to be serious backlash on Keir Starmer and this government, and the public are going to be very, very angry.
How do you know that he might not be recalled? Because, as Keir Starmer said, nobody with any kind of violent crime was going to be released, and
Nina,
he has been released.
Released women beaters.
They just went back on that promise, Nina.
Yeah, but
if he's going to be recalled, the Justice Secretary should have made that clear this afternoon.
Well,
if it's an administrative error,
it's only just been discovered.
If it's an administrative error, they should be able to clear this up in minutes.
Well, I don't think you can do that in minutes.
I think it's an error of judgment, not an administrative error.
He's tweeted himself that he's driving around now in an armoured truck, one that's about £150,000. So obviously crime does pay.
But there are actually many criminals who've been released who are driving around in great big cars. So it's not just him.
As the leading Conservative MP pointed out when we had pictures of these people walking into their Bentleys and Rolls Royces, at least there are some entrepreneurs who are doing well under the Starmer government.
Yeah.
These seem to be the only ones who are.
They're not paying tax either, are they? But yeah, no, look, I find it quite astonishing that you've got people like that who are out on the streets, and there's something quite Orwellian about this whole thing. You let someone like that guy who tried to pour scalding water over a 16-year-old...
Disgraceful.
Kidnapped,
Revolting.
GBH, all of that.
Disgusting.
Exactly. And that's just the stuff we know about, right? So whatever, you know. So we're being told that we need to let people like that out in order to stop the justice system from grinding to a halt, i.e. to keep us safe.
Nonsense.
Right? But we're also being told that someone like Peter Lynch or Lucy Connolly need to be behind bars for the good of the country.
Well, how long have they been behind bars for?
Well, been a few months now.
I mean, OK, say 3 months.
These are quite hefty sentences.
Very hefty.
They'll serve half of them.
So they've only been in prison
for 3 months. They're also going
so...
to prison with the word racist and tattooed on their back, which is not a particular...
Nobody said that.
Well, the implication...
Nobody said that.
Well, that's what they've gone down for.
Nobody said that.
Look, People that were involved in the riots are being targeted in UK prisons, and that's a fact.
I mean, the bit we've got, surely the thing we need to get to is that prison should be long stretches for very, very violent offenders, in which we don't want them on the streets. Generally speaking, if what you've done is criminal but non-violent, we should not be looking for a custodial sentence. That should be the default position.
But the whole of the justice system and the whole of the prison system needs to be reformed. It's not a question of building more prisons and locking up more people. We already lock up more people than anybody else in Western. It goes Russia, Turkey, and then us.
I think.
And the thing is,
the Americans are more than us.
Well, yes, the Americans are. I'm talking about Europe. But the thing is, we don't have a prison system where
small offences.
The main thing I think most people out there, the majority, would like to see, if you go away for severe violence or a violent crime, you do your whole sentence. If you get 10 years, you do 10 years.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, look, what I am calling for, and I think many people are, is some kind of inquiry here into the relationship between the judicial system, the judiciary, the judges, and
politics.
And politics. And whether or not there was any communication at all between Number 10 and members of the judiciary. What was the relationship between Keir Starmer and members of the judiciary? Did he happen to know them from the old legal circuit? All of that stuff. It needs to be out in the open. A man has died. A man has died. And I think if it was in different circumstances and it was maybe a different man with a different background or whatever, I do think there would be more calls to look into this.
Agreed.
But look, we're going to have to knock it on the head for now. But a spokesperson for the Ministry of Justice said the new government inherited a prison system on the point of collapse.
It's true.
Yes. It's been forced to introduce an emergency early release programme to avert a crisis that would have overwhelmed the criminal justice system, meaning
absolutely
no
true.
longer be able to lock up dangerous criminals.
True.
And protect them. But they've let them out, Nina. They've let dangerous criminals out. Young Drizzy's out.
Bring him out. Bring him back.
OK. We will build the prison places to ensure that serious offenders can always be punished in jail. Right, OK, good stuff. Well, I've got loads more coming your way. Including a story that I know angered a lot of you at the time. I'll tell you about it in full in a second. It's about Labour MPs and the old axing of the winter fuel payment and then basically trying to charity wash that. But before that, it's time for the Great British Giveaway. The clock is ticking. Lines close on Friday. Make sure you don't miss out on your chance to win 36 grand in tax-free cash. Here's how you can make that money yours.
On demand. Good luck.
Coming up, all of tomorrow's newspaper front pages with my panel, but first, I'm going to be naming and shaming the Labour MPs who voted in favour of a winter fuel payment cut, but kept their jobs as ambassadors for the leading charity for the elderly, Age UK. We've been to all of them, and I mean all of them today, and I've got their responses for you very shortly. I think it's quite interesting. I'm joined by a pensioner who says that some of her friends are suicidal with worry about freezing to death this winter. Stay tuned.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. They catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about.
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Martin Daubney, weekdays from 3 p.m.
We shot with the London Eye in the background, so it's quite an iconic shoot to do my cover of the Playboy magazine. So,
and you moved into the mansion for a while. Hugh called you the British Carmen Electra. You were one of his favourites, and it's renowned for its parties, of course. Over there, you must have had a few of those. Must have been wild times.
Fantastic parties, yeah. I mean, I met some incredible people. I will forever respect him and everyone at Playboy for the love and the support.
And you're on giant billboards, you're modelling for Nike, for Reebok, you're earning thousands of pounds a day.
Well,
absolutely like living the dream in terms of a model's lifestyle, and then things began to change.
Well, I've been living in Windsor for 4 years, and I can't get back into Windsor at the moment. The rents have gone ridiculous. I was paying $550 a month, and then the landlord just turned around one day and said I need to be paying $750. And I didn't really have a proper tenancy agreement, and I looked through it and I said, oh, can we get something in writing? And he was like, oh. So in the end, I wrote a tenancy agreement out from off the internet and I got it all signed, but then he went, if you're not going to pay the extra £250 a month, then you're going to have to move out. And I was like, well, you're going to have to give me 4 weeks. I can't just move out. I've got nowhere to go. And I think he thought he could just throw me out there and then. And he said, I've got someone that's going to move in that's going to pay £700-800 a month. So I went and got the 10, and I thought maybe this will be the way I can go for a few months or so, you know. And it was still summer a few months back when I became homeless. So, you know, I got the 10 and I got all the cooking equipment and what have you from the money I got from some of the jobs I did. And I thought, you know what, I'm gonna go and be a free spirit for a bit, and I'm gonna have to just do my own thing. And you know what, it was the biggest mental relief to be able to have my own space. I mean, that was so liberating, absolutely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Nightmare commute? Kick it up a gear with GB News Radio. You can listen online and on DAB+ and on the GB News app. We're also on TuneIn and the Radio Player apps. From the school run to rush hour, get revved up with GB News Radio. We are the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys tonight. Shortly, I'll have the very first look at tomorrow's front pages. But first, now I can exclusively reveal to you that 9 Labour MPs who voted in favour of the government's winter fuel cut for millions of vulnerable pensioners, a death sentence, may I add, to pensioners, have kept their roles as Age UK champions. Barry Gardner of Brent West, Frank McNally, Margaret Mullane, we've got Fabian Hamilton, Sarah Champion, Olivia Blake, Clive Betts, Derek Twigg and Mark Sewards. Now, they all voted to take winter fuel payments away from a majority of pensioners. That is despite Labour's own risk assessment finding that 4,000 people could die. Well, I can reveal as well that they are still those Age UK ambassadors. That's Britain's leading charity for the elderly, apparently. So one local resident raised the obvious hypocrisy with this. The charity said, your MP voted for the change to the winter fuel payment. Although you might be disappointed with this, with a strong majority and the threat of losing the whip, some MPs felt that they had to vote with the government in order to stay in the party and therefore be able to influence change. We reached out today to every single one of those MPs, all right? So I wanted to give them the opportunity to come on and try to justify to you at home and the listeners how they could look themselves in the mirror by doing this and how they can call themselves an age champion when in reality they had an opportunity to vote and they voted for pensioners to freeze to death in their own homes. Not a single one of them has said that they will come on. Not a single one. Well, they're going to have to get very used to emails and phone calls every single day from my team, I'm afraid, because we're just going to keep hammering them until one of them decides to actually come on and explain themselves. But I am joined now by a pensioner, Ellen Russell. Ellen, thank you very much. It's great to have you on the show. I'd like to just ask you a bit about how some of your friends, people that you talk to, are feeling about the loss of the winter fuel payment and how it's affecting them.
Sorry, Patrick, you went dead for a minute. So I had a friend phone me tonight. She had applied. There's a lot of misleading information. People are being told to apply for this pension credit. Now, an ordinary pensioner who has worked all their life, contributed, got full contributions, they get £221.20 a week to live on. And the ones who get 218, even if they own houses, can get up to all the benefits, the winter fuel, heating allowance and the rest of it. what sense does it make for a government to possibly penalise the people in this country who have worked all their lives? A woman said to me, she says, well, what have they done with their money? We're talking about your hairdressers, your cleaners, your shop assistants, your labourers, your brickies. You're talking about the working class people. This is what Labour got in, saying they were going to look after. The rich and the professional people usually have private pensions. It's the people who hit this bracket where they can't claim another penny. They can't get any help whatsoever. And they're being penalised. They would have been far better off if they hadn't done a day's work in their life. It's an absolute disgusting disgrace. And any MP who has the audacity to look at themselves in a mirror and they've done this to the elderly in this country ought to be absolutely ashamed of themselves. I'm a waspy woman. I deliberately put my T-shirt on for you, Newcastle. We met you in London on the 7th and interviewed Christine Smith. And we're going to be down there on the 30th, and by God, we are going to make a noise. We are proud. And by the way, there are millions of waspy women who are affected by this stopping the winter.
Can I ask Ellen? I don't want to interrupt. Woe betide me for interrupting you in full flow, Ellen. But I want to ask, look, just to stress the actual toll this is taking on some people mentally, as they know winter's approaching. I mean, the heating I think went on the other night in my house, you know, but like for a lot, it's having an effect on people, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I've had several people. I worked as a psychotherapist for 30 years. I've had several people come up to me saying, Ellen, I feel absolutely suicidal. I can't face a future in poverty. Honest, it is appalling. My heart bleeds, absolutely bleeds. But the state, of many friends and family who are in this situation, and I think they have to U-turn on this decision. They can't seriously think that. I mean, you're talking 4,000, and that's before the money went up, before the electric bills have gone up. I mean, come on. I mean, what are they paying? £221, you know, that these people, the people who are missing out on the pension credit, who can't get the winter fuel, that's £504 is the national living wage. They're on half the money. So, come on.
How can they live? How can they live? And I know full well, you know, that a lot of pensioners have grandchildren, and they like to do nice little things for the grandchildren. They might like to give them a fiver when they come round, and they might like to take them out for a day. Well, they can't afford to do any of that either now. This winter fuel, it's not just about them physically freezing to death in their own homes. It affects all of their lives, all around them. It traps them. It keeps them prisoner. Look, Ellen, thank you so much for coming on. Go on, one more thing.
This woman who spoke to me tonight, she says, this was 6 o'clock tonight, by the way. She says, Ellen, I'm sitting in bed in my dressing gown, freezing. Now that's what, really comfortable MPs are doing. And they're sitting, £221, they've paid that for one meal. And we cannot have it for a week. So, they want shooting.
Right, OK, well, Ellen, all right. Well, look, Ellen, thank you very much for coming on. Obviously, some strong stuff at the end there. I think we can all agree Ellen didn't mean that literally. But, Ellen, thank you very much. Ellen Russell there, who is a pensioner. Look, obviously, you know, you have a bit of back and forth with Ellen there, and she's, you know, a real character. And I love that. But there is an incredibly serious thing. There was a lot of very serious stuff that she said there about people feeling suicidal, about people feeling betrayed, about people feeling let down, about the injustice of it all. And I agree with all of that. I think it's absolutely shocking. We are running a Just Giving page now. I am running a Just Giving page, justgiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors. This all goes to Friends of the Elderly. It's a charity that gives direct grants for people who are struggling to make ends meet, pensioners, helps take them to doctor's appointments. You know, that's the one. We are 94% the way of hitting our target. So thank you very much to every single one of you who has given anything. Just quickly, I've had Mel, 1 minute ago, has given 20 quid. Thank you, Mel. We've got Neil, 50 quid, 5 minutes ago. They've also given gift aid. Now, on Saturday, I am going to be climbing up the top of Stickle Tarn in the Lake District, which is in about an hour and a half up there. The sun, let me tell you, that picture on your screen now, it will not look like that on Saturday. The weather forecast is grim. A wind chill factor of -1, winds of up to 40 kilometres an hour, and I'm going to be getting right in that tarn, which is going to be around 4 or 5 degrees, and I'm basically going to see how long I can stay in there. Why? Because I'm going to get freezing cold, so that however cold I will be there, pensioners are going to be even colder in their own homes this winter, and that is a disgrace. JustGiving.com/page/Save Our Seniors, and yes, before you ask, we will be filming it, and I will be showing you it all on Monday, so you can see me in a lot of pain. Right, well, I've got the newspaper front pages for you very, very soon, and should these two just get a little room, do you think?
Gingers!
All that and much more next. Stay tuned.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through into this evening and overnight and into tomorrow, largely dry with a mix of cloud and clear spells. Still fairly windy across the northwest of Scotland, though. We can see this clearly with the squeeze in the isobars as this frontal system makes its way in. Otherwise, generally high pressure across most of the country, bringing us that mix of cloud and clear spells overnight, turning a little bit chilly under those clearer skies too. Across Scotland, though, a cloudier picture. Plenty of blustery winds overnight with a risk of coastal gales by the time we reach the morning, and just some outbreaks of rain edging into the Outer Hebrides. A fairly cool night under those clearer skies, but not turning quite as chilly as it did last night. Now, those blustery winds are going to continue across Scotland, still with those risk of gales, particularly around any exposed spots and across any coasts, with just that rain edging into the far west. Otherwise, largely dry, plenty of cloud, quite a cloudy start across Northern Ireland too, and across the north of England, and some blustery winds just blowing up through across the Irish Sea as well. And once again, across the rest of England and Wales, a mix of cloud and clear spells to start the day. And that pretty much sets us up. Once again, a mix of clouds, sunny spells, the best of the sunshine across East Anglia, Sussex and Kent, for example. And then we still have that rain continuing to slowly edge its way into the northwest, so western parts of Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, starting to see those outbreaks of rain as we head into the afternoon, and still those blustery winds continuing. But highs of around 17, 18 Celsius in the south, so feeling pleasant for the time of year. Heading into Friday, quite an unsettled day. We've got those outbreaks of rain erratically moving their way eastwards across the country, some heavy downpours at times. As this clears away, we will see some brighter weather along with some showers too. This sets us up for a fairly unsettled weekend with rain and showers, so stay updated. Otherwise, that's it from me. Bye for now.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is the nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Patrick Christys Tonight. Here are tomorrow's newspaper front pages, starting with the Metro. Tower block baby, unborn child who survived a mum's 90-foot fall. Gosh. Yep, she fell apparently 90 feet to her death, sadly, from a tower block, but the baby survived. And there we go. Let's go to the Daily Telegraph. Starmer's top aides drawn into Trump row. We spoke about this earlier. This is Morgan McSweeney, who's apparently been helping to organise these Labour raids. It's a bad luck. There is a story here on the front that I'm going to return to. Right to strike for twice as long under Rayner's union reforms. I don't believe this, as in I do believe it, I can't believe it, though. Unions will be able to stage strike action for up to a year after balloting members under new powers drawn up by Angela Rayner. There's also more to that story, which I'll return to. The Daily Express, another Esther Ranson story. Will you force me to fly to Dignitas to die alone? Distressed Dame Esther's plea to Health Secretary Wes Streeting, who plans to vote against changing assisted dying law. Yeah, it's a controversial topic. I'm not sure Keir Starmer saying he promised Esther Ranson that he'd bring it to the House of Commons is the right thing to do, but there are... Yeah, I do respect both sides of that discussion, genuinely. The Eye, 2024 budget cuts are a disaster for crime victims, warn former UK Justice Secretaries. Let's just finish this one off with the Mail. We'd planned to marry, reveals Liam Payne's heartbroken girlfriend. And the main story on the front is fury over Rachel Reeves's raid on private sector pensions. So apparently Labour are plotting a raid on your private pension. She's accused of planning a slew of tax hikes on private enterprise. Right, let's deal with the right to strike then. Mark, so apparently not only will unions be able to strike for a year after balloting, because, get this, currently it's 6 months. You have a 6-month window. Yep. But then you'd have to reballot, and that costs the union time and money. So we can't have that. They're also going to be able to stage wildcat walkouts, which sounds like a night out at uni, but it's not. The government is going to let them just... I bet it just means you walk out whenever you want.
Well, it's going to make industrial action, striking, more common, I would suggest. And indeed, a good number of the public sector unions, despite the huge payoff they've already received from this government, apparently, we're told, facing an enormous black hole, not that that affected in any way their immediate unconditional and unilateral offer to the trade unions. It's going to be easier for them to strike, and the trade unions have made it plain that despite the pay rises they've been given, hugely generous ones, they're likely to strike. Look, I'm all in favour of trade unions. I think it's really tragic that the trade union movement is now almost entirely a public sector vehicle. They don't exist in the private sector anymore. And I'm in favour of the right to join a trade union. But I'm also in favour of the right not to. And I think the public sector should recruit people, teachers, nurses, doctors, train drivers, who are willing to sign a contract to say they will not strike. And we should pay those people rather more, rather than to have this nonsense of the public sector being shut down, even when these people are very well remunerated.
Yeah, OK. Adam, your views on this? I mean, I don't see why you would need easier... needs to be made easier to strike unless you wanted to strike more.
Yeah, look, before the election, many of us... I sat on this settee warning that Labour could take us back to the 1970s. And it looks like they've just put the first sort of step towards that. Let's remember that strikes cost our economy billions each year when they happen. They also cost lives. Many of the doctor strikes cost a lot of lives in our health service. I think we all knew this was going to happen because the unions control Labour. They donate to the Labour Party. So it was obvious that they was going to bow to them. I think it's a shame, and we've got trouble ahead.
Well, if we couple that, Nina, so you've got increased ability to strike from these unions. You also look at Rachel Reeves saying she's not going to come after public sector pensions, but she is going to come after, it seems, private sector pensions. I mean, is this just a way of... She just wants everyone working for the state, doesn't she?
No, I don't think so. And I don't believe Labour wants us to go back to the 1970s. They're not that stupid.
They are.
They are not that stupid, Adam. There's no point just saying, oh, they are that stupid. They are not that stupid.
They are.
Don't be childish. For heaven's sake, they are not that stupid.
Butting in like you do to me. OK, carry on. All right.
I've hardly been allowed to say a word on this sofa tonight.
Go on, Nina.
So I will not take that from you.
Go on, Nina.
I was going to say that the point being that the reasons that those strikes, like the union doctors' strike and the railways, dragged on before the election, because it was seen to be Tory party policy to kick them down the road. They were completely hamstrung in settling them. And when Labour came in, they immediately settled because they needed to be settled, because you cannot get a country to go forward without railways that work, without a national health service with doctors that work. Let's face it, the reason that that there was such a problem and people died was because of the Conservative government.
Paying people with a poor productivity record.
Not negotiating at all.
Nothing to do with asking for 35% rises, nothing at all. No.
Well, look,
we're not talking about that.
We've identified tonight on this show, which we do, I think, most nights, I've identified several really key issues. You've got the issue with crime, we've got the issue with two-tier justice, we've got the issue with public sector pay rises, tax, all of that stuff, pensioners we've just spoken about. So which makes me think, well, PMQs, the Prime Minister's questions, you know, every week, this is where you get right into the meat and bones of it. This is where it's your opportunity to knock people about a bit and you know, get answers for the public and take it seriously, right? The public expect it to be taken seriously. Well, today there was much hilarity in the House of Commons. You know, thank God everything's going really well in the country. We haven't seen the release of thousands of dangerous criminals or anything like that. You know, here is a bit of what went on.
The Battle of the Gingers. The late nights voting.
Our Commonwealth family is brought together by historical and cultural ties. Indeed, much like the pair of us. But I will resist, Mr. Speaker, the temptation to replicate that.
Sorry, can I just say I think that's an absolute disgrace? An absolute disgrace. That is taxpayer-funded, all of that. Tripe, complete tripe, and we have got serious issues facing this country at the moment. Look, I'm all for a bit of a laugh, don't get me wrong, but that is not the time and the place for it. They are treating politics like a game.
That was point scoring, basically. Verbal points.
Was it on who could shut the other one up first?
No, well, exactly, and that's the point, because Oliver Dowden thinks he's witty, and Angela Rayner will rise to that and go back at him.
Loads of people are skint and they're going to die.
Yeah.
So what we're dealing with that.
Patrick, myself and Nina will argue every week because we're passionate about the things that we believe in, and we know that these are serious issues. These people are paid via our taxes to sort out our lives, to make sure we're safe, to make sure our elderly are heated during the winter. Why are they laughing like that?
I thought Oliver Dowden was it. Well, I'm sorry to say this was a complete disgrace there.
He started it off.
Yeah, you can. It's all. Of course, Angela Rayner was happy for it. She's just getting away, laughing, thinking, it's brilliant. I'm getting away with it.
But hang on one second. I mean, look, I'm going to strike a discordant note. Prime Minister's questions is supposed to be point scoring. Exactly. That is exactly what it's built to be. Sometimes, although I like the adversarial nature of British politics, you know, face to face, one side against the other, a bit like our court system, I think a bit of brevity and jollity is not a bad thing. A little bit of bipartisanship, a little bit of appreciating that the people on the other side of the House might not be evil and wicked, might just disagree with you. I'm not against that. Politics itself needs to be taken seriously, but very rarely is policy made at PMQs.
All right, OK. Coming up, I'll bring you the rest of tomorrow's newspaper front pages, and I've got some breaking news for you. Disposable vapes will be banned from June next year.
Hurrah!
God.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Oedipus is back in the theatre, as Stefan Kyriazis can tell me. Stefan, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much.
A good Oedipus or a bad one?
It's a great one. It's divided the critics a little bit. So some would prefer more kind of truth to the original text, perhaps a little bit more sense of the kind of epic Greek tragedy. I mean, this is Sophocles. It's 2,500 years old, and it's still one of the best, literally, no pun, the mother of all tragedies. It's just absolutely staggering. You like that?
I did. Where and with whom?
So this one is on at the Wyndham Theatre until January the 4th. The exciting thing is Mark Strong as Oedipus, Leslie Manville as his wife, Jocasta, and it's been reframed, you'll see from the pictures, as a modern political thriller. So he is waiting for election results, general election results, you will remember. There's a clock ticking down in the background. They're at Campaign HQ. They're waiting for it to click down to zero. We increasingly know that when it hits zero, terrible truths are coming. So it's operating on two levels. He's obsessed with the truth. He says very famously, I am me. He's so proud of his sense of who he is. And of course, that's all going to be horrendously ripped away. Mark Strong is wonderful. And then when we get to the very end and the horrific final reveal, I forgot. I was so gripped in the political thriller and everything else, I actually swore under my breath in the theatre, Michael, because I just had been so engrossed, and they play very well at other mysteries going on and a family drama, that when my penny dropped, I literally was devastated, and they do it. Even the critics that haven't loved this reframing admit, the two of them, and especially at the end, it's searingly agonising. It's glorious.
2,500 years later,
yeah,
it's still absolutely visceral.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. I've got the final look at tomorrow's front pages. The Guardian, schools funding crisis. The special needs costs soar to £10 billion. Let's go to the Sun, though. I think this is the big breaking news. After Pub Garden Cig clampdown, there's going to be a ban on vapes. Disposable vapes will be banned across the UK within 8 months. New laws will prohibit their sale from June the 1st, quote, to protect kids' health and the environment. Mark?
Crazy stuff. Look, vaping is not to be advised, but we have had tremendous success in getting people off old-style combustible cigarettes, which are way worse for you. So if I've got a choice between people vaping or smoking, I'd like to see people vaping, and it probably is a choice between the lesser evil here and the worse evil.
This is to protect kids and to stop...
Well, I'll go back onto cigarettes.
I've got a teenage boy, and vaping is a huge problem in all schools. I think maybe they should concentrate on the counterfeit ones that are coming from China and the problem we've got with that than maybe just banning them outright.
We've actually been sleepwalking into an absolute tragedy for kids because the numbers of children and young people who vape are increasing exponentially all the time. It's become so fashionable, and these young people are addicted to nicotine, and they are moving, rather than adults moving from smoking to vaping, which is healthier, I understand that, and that's how this has all crept through. They are starting on vapes and going into cigarettes.
No, there's hardly anybody who switches to smoking. So as Adam says, there probably is vaping problems in schools, but thank God there aren't the smoking problems in schools we used to have, which is a lot worse for you.
Look, I just wonder, well, you know, regardless of what anyone's views are, but I just think, I don't know if the state should be getting involved in this.
Yeah,
millions and millions and millions of people do it. Is that a bad idea? Right, OK, it's time to reveal, says Greatest Britain and Union Jackass. Greatest Britain, please.
Jeff Capes passed away today. Childhood hero of mine. Sums up everything great about Britain.
Yep.
World's strongest man. He had strength, compassion, dignity. Nina was pointing out to me he was once president of the Budgeriggar Society.
He was.
Gentle giant. What a legend.
Good start. Go on.
Mine is my friend and my Misfits boxing colleague, Tristan Ham, who has been, along with his friend Rick Lindsay, fuelling up hurricane victims' cars and vehicles, offering water and supplies. They've used helicopters and trucks. He's a proper hero, and he needs recognition.
Brilliant stuff. OK, go on here.
Richard Branson, who this week has been championing the employment of ex-offenders and giving them a second chance, and through his companies in Virgin, he has done enormous work in this area, and it's all been very positive. OK, all right.
Well, today I am going to go for Mark's suggestion. Who was again?
Jeff Capes.
Jeff Capes.
What a winner.
Jeff Capes. All right. OK, who's your Union Jackass?
Sophia Patel, the head of operations for the Labour Party. She was the one who suggested on LinkedIn, we can sort you, there's a scarcity of places, but we'll sort your housing if you go and campaign for Kamala Harris. What a disaster. She's now deleted the LinkedIn post.
Of course.
Mine is Norfolk Police Constabulary for forcing their women officers to change alongside trans women who are biological men, even if they're fully intact with their male genitalia.
Yeah, not great. OK, go on then, Nina.
Mine's posthumous.
OK.
Margaret Thatcher.
Oh.
For flogging off our water in 1989 was a disastrous, decision which put profits before people, which means that we've now been left with cesspools in terms of rivers, lakes.
Had a long time to sort it out, to be fair, didn't we?
No, it's got worse and worse and worse because she started it off.
All right.
Without that, we wouldn't be in this state.
I'm going to go for Union Jackass. I'm going to go for Norfolk Constabulary, or basically the woke people behind the scenes there, not the police officers, but they've been forcing women officers to change with men. Right, up next is Headliners, presented tonight by Josh Howie, who is such a good-looking man these days. Look at that. What you got on your show?
We have got all of tomorrow's stories right in. We've got Kamala Harris calling Trump Hitler. We've got the latest Chris Kaba developments. We've got a story about kissing. We also have Nick Dixon and Leo Kearse, the OGs, and I am there to keep them Ofcom compliant. Join us soon.
Good luck with that. All right, mate. OK, take care. It's always a cracking watch. Make sure you stay tuned to Headliners. The new revamped Headliners. It really is the only place to be. So they are live for the next hour. There's no need for you to turn the telly off. I'm back again tomorrow from 9 p.m. Thank you for everybody who's donated to justgiving.com/page/save our seniors. We're nearly at £250,000, 94% of our target. All of that money is going to Friends of the Elderly. And on tomorrow's show, I'm going to be talking to you a little bit more about this ice-cold swim that I'm going to be doing, because I think it's a disgrace that pensioners are going to be even colder than that in their own homes this winter. So I'll see you tomorrow at 9 p.m.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, good evening. Welcome to your GB News weather update from the Met Office. Through into this evening and overnight and into tomorrow, largely dry with a mix of cloud and clear spells. Still fairly windy across the northwest of Scotland, though. We can see this clearly with the squeeze in the isobars as this frontal system makes its way in. Otherwise, generally high pressure across most of the country, bringing us that mix of cloud and clear spells overnight, turning a little bit chilly under those clearer skies too. Across Scotland, though, a cloudier picture. Plenty of blustery winds overnight with a risk of coastal gales by the time we reach the morning, and just some outbreaks of rain edging into the Outer Hebrides. A fairly cool night under those clearer skies, but not turning quite as chilly as it did last night. Now, those blustery winds are going to continue across Scotland, still with those risk of gales, particularly around any exposed spots and across any coasts, with just that rain edging into the far west. Otherwise, largely dry, plenty of cloud, quite a cloudy start across Northern Ireland too, and across the north of England, and some blustery winds just blowing up through across the Irish Sea as well. And once again, across the rest of England and Wales, a mix of cloud and clear spells to start the day. And that pretty much sets us up. Once again, a mix of clouds, sunny spells, the best of the sunshine across East Anglia, Sussex and Kent, for example. And then we still have that rain continuing to slowly edge its way into the northwest, so western parts of Northern Ireland, western parts of Scotland, starting to see those outbreaks of rain as we head into the afternoon, and still those blustery winds continuing. But highs of around 17, 18 Celsius in the south, so feeling pleasant for the time of year. Heading into Friday, quite an unsettled day. We've got those outbreaks of rain erratically moving their way eastwards across the country, some heavy downpours at times. As this clears away, we will see some brighter weather along with some showers too. This sets us up for a fairly unsettled weekend with rain and showers, so stay updated. Otherwise, that's it from me. Bye for now.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
This is Demand. Good luck.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The Sleep Report 2024 is based on a comprehensive survey conducted all across the country, and the report found that over half the population, get this, falls short of the recommended 7+ hours of required sleep each night. And shockingly, 1 in 4 of us is getting 5 hours or less, and that includes you, doesn't it?
Yes, I'm very bad at sleep. 4 or 5, I'd say.
That's
a bit
awful.
like Maggie Thatcher. What would you get on average?
I'd say at least 6. 7 probably average.
That's probably not good. I think you probably need 8. Well, almost half of Brits rate their sleep quality as 5 out of 10 or lower.
Dr Manesh Shah and Dr Sita Shah joins us now to tell us all about the sleep and how Brits are struggling. Good morning to you both.
Morning.
First questions to you both. How many hours do you both get?
God, I think it varies. I try and hit that 7 hours of sleep.
Why are Brits so bad at getting sleep, especially in terms of hours? 4 or 5 hours for me, 6 hours for you. It's the same for everybody out there in the UK. We're just not going to bed early enough. Is it as simple as that? Or is it slightly more complicated?
Yeah, so I think the key is to establish a good routine. So waking up at the same time every day, making sure that you're going to sleep at the same time every day, and being quite sort of rigid and strict with yourself when it comes to those timings.
And also, it's not just the length of, I get, say, 7 hours, it's the quality, isn't it? You've got different phases of sleep. Just explain those. Is it, as far as I remember, REM, deep sleep? Just tell us about that.
Correct, yeah. So, essentially, there's 4 stages to sleep. So there's stage 1 and stage 2, which are your lighter stages of sleep. And then stage 3 is your deeper sleep. And then you've got the stage 4, which is your REM. Which is a rapid eye movement stage. And it's the stage 3 and the REM sleep which is really, really important for restorative and regenerative sleep.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, it's 11 o'clock, which means it's time for Headliners. 3 comedians bringing you the very best of Thursday's newspapers as they roll straight off the press. Join us for the next 60 minutes to find out why and who called Trump Hitler, which nationality are these guys pretending to be, and how can you get these guys to give you an extra £400 a month. I'm Josh Howie, and our comedians on the panel tonight are Leo Kearse, a right-wing comedian, and for balance, Nick Dixon, who's also a right-wing comedian. Thursday's front page is coming up in just a sec, but before tomorrow's news, here's tonight's headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Good evening, I'm Sophia Wensler with your headlines from the GB newsroom. A 60-year-old woman has been arrested on suspicion of manslaughter after 3 people were found dead at a care home in Swanage. It comes just hours after they said the deaths were being treated as unexplained and possible carbon monoxide poisoning is the primary line of inquiry. South Western Ambulance Service responded in the early hours of this morning, dispatching a hazard response team and 10 double-crewed ambulances. Chief Superintendent Heather Dixie said 7 people have now been taken to hospital as a precaution, but assured that there is no risk to the wider public. Turkey's defence ministry says it has conducted airstrikes in northern Iraq and northern Syria against terrorist targets. It follows the deadly attack on an aerospace firm by a suspected Kurdish rebel group. Loud explosions were heard and footage showed an exchange of gunfire at the site in the Turkish capital of Ankara. It's understood at this point we know 5 people have been killed and 22 injured, some in a critical condition. Turkey's Interior Minister